What was interesting and revealing about younger and middle-aged views on old age was how relative these were to the individual's own age. Those in their teens regarded 40 as old, whereas those in their 40s thought 70 or 80 was old. For many, health was seen as a determining factor in deciding who is old, and many young participants commented on how fit and active their grandparents are, while others thought ill health and dependence were an inevitable part of aging. The majority of participants, however, regarded old age as something negative, and many expressed fear of growing old.
We've decided to adopt, just as a loose theme for the course, a biological theme so that you can see the connections between chemistry and biology and the things you might consider doing in the future. We want you to think about the molecules that are relevant to your body, the processes that occur in your body, the chemistry that's going on, and how energy plays a role. And we've divided the course into 4 sections, and after each section there will be a midterm. The first one is about matter. Life in the UK 2012 provides a unique overview of well-being in the UK today. The report is the first snapshot of life in the UK to be delivered by the Measuring National Wellbeing Programme and will be updated and published annually. Well-being is discussed in terms of the economy, people and the environment. Information such as the unemployment rate or number of crimes against the person are presented alongside data on people's thoughts and feelings, for example, satisfaction with our jobs or leisure time and fear of crime. Together, a richer picture on how society is doing is provided.
My hero is Marie Curie. She was a Polish physicist and chemist working in France, and she did conduct pioneering research on radioactivity. She was also the first woman who won a Nobel Prize. Marie Curie is my hero because she showed a lot of determination in following her career path and her passions. She also showed a lot of patience in working for years to receive results from her experiments. And Marie Curie, she designed and built the first mobile X-ray machines. She worked on the front lines of the First World War along with her daughter, saving soldiers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My theme for this session is convergence, technology change and business practice. This is somewhat dear to my heart, in that I have spent much of the last 15 years involved in various aspects of technology and their impact on business, across a broad spectrum, from applications of signal processing in manufacture right through to the use of utilization data and diary applications, to improve the time utilization of the sales force. My hero Adidas teamed up with an organization called Parley for the Oceans. Parley goes out and collects plastic waste from the ocean. Adidas uses the plastic waste to make shoes. Shoes made with plastic from the ocean. Good for the environment and good for business. Because if you know that rapidly growing consumer segment known as hipsters, and I know you know hipsters, then you know that a hipster faced with the choice between a no-name shoe and an Adidas made with plastic from the ocean will pick the Adidas every day of the week and twice on Sunday, and then walk around like it's no big deal but look for every opportunity to talk about them.
The earlier chocolate was quite unpalatable. They used to add things to it to make it more palatable, so for the early chocolate, they didn't know how to extract all the cocoa fat from it, so it was, or could be quite greasy, and if you made it as a drink you'd have this sort of scum on the top. So they used to try and add things to it, like starch and things, to make it a more palatable product. So there were a lot of scandals around the kind of things they were adding to chocolate in the 19th century. So by the sort of 1870s, 1880s, there are people like Cadbury's saying, our chocolate is absolutely pure. We have this new process, the Van Houten process, which now extracts all this horrible fat that we can use to make eating chocolate. Now we have a pure product. As with all human behavior, there are numerous reasons for it. But often it's caused by someone who feels the need to show their superiority over someone else, in order to feel that they aren't at the lowest level in hierarchy, or a group of people. In some cases one person simply dislikes the other, on the basis that the personality of one is in some way incompatible with that of the other person.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My theme for this session is convergence technology change in business practice. This is somewhat dear to my heart, in that I have spent much of the last 15 years involved in various aspects of technology and their impact on business, across a broad spectrum, from applications of signal processing and manufacture right through to the use of utilization data and diary applications, to improve the time utilization of the sales force. Lead in time is the amount of time that elapses between a business placing an order with a supplier for more stock or raw materials, and the delivery of the goods to the business. Businesses want the lead time to be as short as possible, so that they can meet their customer orders and minimize the time between paying for the stock and receiving the feedback from the customer. However, this may not happen due to a number of factors, such as delays in the supplier receiving the order, or the breakdown of the supplier's lorries delivering the stock to the business.
The earlier chocolate was quite unpalatable. They used to add things to it to make it more palatable, so for the early chocolate, they didn't know how to extract all the cocoa fat from it, so it was, or could be quite greasy, and if you made it as a drink you'd have this sort of scum on the top. So they used to try and add things to it, like starch and things, to make it a more palatable product. So there were a lot of scandals around the kind of things they were adding to chocolate in the 19th century. So by the sort of 1870s, 1880s, there are people like Cadbury's saying, "Our chocolate is absolutely pure. We have this new process, the Van Houten process, which now extracts all this horrible fat that we can use to make eating chocolate. Now we have a pure product." As with all human behavior, there are numerous reasons for it. But often it's caused by someone who feels the need to show their superiority over someone else, in order to feel that they aren't at the lowest level in hierarchy or a group of people. In some cases one person simply dislikes the other, on the basis that the personality of one is in some way incompatible with that of the other person.
One seminal difference in policy remains. The coalition has not matched what is Labor's most important innovation promise. That is to bring together responsibilities for innovation, industry, science and research under one single federal minister. Innovation responsibilities currently lie within the powerful Department of Education and Science, and while there is a separate industry department, it has little influence within cabinet. This has hampered policy development and given Australia's innovation policies a distinct science and research bias. It is the scientists rather than the engineers who call the tune in innovation policy in Canberra, so it's no surprise our policies are all about boosting government-funded research and later commercializing their results.
UNICEF is warning that schools in Haiti are increasingly at the mercy of gangs, with children becoming targets of robbery or ransom. The agency said Tuesday at least 7 schools in the capital of Port-au-Prince have been forced to pay unidentified gangs in exchange for security in the past 2 months, and that additional institutions have also been threatened. The warning comes days after authorities said gang members killed a university professor they had recently abducted. In addition, U.S. and Haitian authorities are still trying to secure the release of 17 missionaries from a U.S. religious organization who were kidnapped on October 16 near the capital. At least 5 people were killed and several others wounded when Sudanese security forces opened fire on demonstrators in Khartoum and elsewhere in the country Saturday. The Sudan Doctors Committee said 4 people died from gunshots and 1 suffocated from tear gas in Khartoum and Omdurman on Saturday. Several other protesters were wounded, including from gunshots. The rallies came 2 days after military coup leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan reappointed himself the head of the Sovereign Council, Sudan's interim governing body. Thursday's move angered the pro-democracy alliance and frustrated the United States and other countries that have urged the military to reverse its coup and to restore civilian rule. Lawrence Stephen Lowry RBS Raw was an English artist. Many of his drawings and paintings depict Pendlebury, Lancashire, where he lived and worked for more than 40 years, and also Salford and its surrounding areas. Lowry is famous for painting scenes of life in the industrial districts of northwest England in the mid-20th century. He developed a distinctive style of painting and is best known for his city landscapes peopled with human figures often referred to as Matchstick Man. He painted mysterious unpopulated landscapes, brooding portraits and the unpublished marionette works, which were only found after his death.
Those of you who've never heard the term Neo-Latin may be forgiven for thinking it's a new South American dance craze. If you're puzzled when I tell you it has something to do with the language of Romans, take heart. Over the years many classes who have confessed they are not really sure what it is either. Some have assumed that they are so-called late Latin, written at the end of the Roman Empire. Others have supposed it must have something to do with the Middle Ages. Or perhaps it's that pseudo-Latin which my 5- and 7-year-old boys seem to have gleaned from the Harry Potter books, useful for spells and curses that they zip one another with makeshift paper ash ones. No, in fact, Neo-Latin is more or less the same as the Latin that was written in the ancient world, Classical Latin. So, what's so new about it?
We are trying to understand the locomotion of one of our closest living relatives, which is the orangutan, and also the locomotion of all of the apes and the common ancestor of humans and the other apes. And in that area, we have had a big problem traditionally, and that we know a lot about how they move around the forest. I've been out to the forest and spent a year recording the different types of locomotion they use, but we have no idea about the energetic cost of how they move around the forest and the solutions that they find to problems of moving around the canopy. And what we're doing here is using the park or athletes as an analogy for a large-bodied ape moving around a complex environment and getting them to move around in the course that we've made that they've never seen before. And we're going to record their energetic expenditure while they're doing it.
One of the things that people have said about agriculture is that on the whole it's more labor-intensive than hunting and gathering, and that's one of the reasons why people have looked to explanations which, you might say, are kind of coercive factors. That people have been forced into agriculture because they had no alternative. That is ultimately what may happen. But at the very beginning it could be that agriculture was developed because people wanted special status foods for feasting. That it was actually a social need. I mean, how much of what we do in our lives is generated by competition with others? And a lot of that is powered by desire for new things, new statuses, new whatever it might be. Respect, recognition also are important. And in small-scale societies a lot of those sorts of factors are generated by the ability to, for instance, throw feasts. One possibility is that some of these foods that were being grown were actually intended especially as feasting foods.
The first section of the book covers new modes of assessment. In Chapter 1, Kim Bell, Goldsmith College, London, responds to criticisms of design programs as formalistic and conventional, stating that a focus on risk-taking rather than hard work in design innovation is equally problematic. His research contains 3 parts that include preliminary exploration of design innovation qualities, investigation of resulting classroom practices, and development of evidence-based assessment. The assessment he describes is presented in the form of a structured worksheet, which includes a collaborative element and digital photographs, in story format. Such a device encourages innovators. The assessment sheet includes holistic impressions as well as details about having, growing, and proving ideas. Colloquial judgments are evident in terms such as wow and yawn, and reward the quality and quantity of ideas with the term sparkiness, which fittingly is a pun as the model project was to design light bulb packaging. In addition, the assessment focuses on the process of optimizing or complexity control as well as proving ideas with thoughtful criticism and not just generation of novel ideas. The definitions for qualities such as technical and aesthetic, pertaining to users, are too narrow and ill-defined. The author provides examples of the project, its features and structures, students' notes and judgments, and their sketches and photographs of finished light bulb packages, in the appendix. What is nanotechnology? Well, a report that was put together by a combination of the Royal Society and the Royal Academy of Engineering that came out last summer, identifies two topics. Nanoscience is the study of phenomena and the manipulation of materials at atomic, molecular and macromolecular scales, where properties differ significantly from those at a larger scale. Nanotechnologies are the design, characterization, production and application of structures, devices and systems by controlling shape and size at the nanometer scale. So I'll talk a little bit more in a moment about what a nanometer is, but loosely speaking people think of nanotechnologies as being a sort of 100 nanometers or less. Now that story's been scotched, as only part of contingency planning. But it was a symptom of the dramatic turn of events in South Australia, and it fleshed out other remarks from Water and people like Tim Flannery, indicating that things were really much worse than had been foreshadowed, even earlier this year. So is Adelaide, let alone some whole regions of South Australia, in serious bother? Considering that the vast amount of its drinking water comes from the beleaguered Murray, something many of us outside the state may not have quite realized. Is their predicament something we have to face up to as a nation?
Pharmacies across the country went on a one-day strike this week to highlight their concerns about the threat from e-pharmacies, and the cost that will be imposed by new regulations on the sale of medicines. The strike, called by the All India Organisation of Chemists and Druggists, had the support of well over 8 lakh pharmacies. But perhaps the only thing clear from the AIOCD's demands is its intention to protect the business interests of traditional brick-and-mortar pharmacies, even if it comes at the cost of the consumer's interest. Traditional pharmacies have been knocking at the doors of the government for some time now as they face intense competition from e-pharmacies. Their profit margins and market share have faced pressure in recent years from e-pharmacies that often offer medicines at cheaper prices. While this has improved the accessibility of drugs to a wider population, the concern of traditional pharmacists too is easy to understand.
Owners of trademarks, which protect things like brand names, logos and slogans that identify sources of goods, can claim infringement if other branding would cause consumer confusion. Remedies range from monetary damages to blocking use. Microsoft since 2003 has owned an X trademark related to communications about its Xbox video game system. Meta Platforms, whose Threads platform is a new Twitter rival, owns a federal trademark registered in 2019 covering a blue and white letter, X, for fields including software and social media. Meta itself drew intellectual property challenges when it changed its name from Facebook. It faces trademark lawsuits filed last year by investment firm Metacapital and virtual reality company Metax, and settled another over its new infinity symbol logo. Well, the simple explanation might be that yesterday's sudden drop in share prices pretty much across the board has created what market analysts like to call a buying opportunity. It tends to bring out investors to pick through the ruins, looking for bargains. Decision by investors that sellers got a little carried away with things, so the buyers have lifted all the major indexes today. The Dow, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500 were all up around 0.5% in early trading today, and that wasn't a big surprise. The sell-off continued somewhat. Overseas European markets remain fairly weak, along with many of the Asian markets. But you'll remember that all this started with a big plunge of around 9% on the stock market in Shanghai. Well, Chinese rebounded by around 4%. The Kerala government is facing trouble over the centre's revamped distribution sector scheme, RDSS, which envisages prepaid smart electricity meters in households and revamping the power distribution network in the country. Last month, the CPI-M Politburo demanded that the centre scrap the project, alleging it would lead to the privatization of the electricity sector and increase the financial burden on the poor and the farmers. Also, trade unions in Kerala affiliated to both the CPI-M and the Congress which have a significant say in the Kerala State Electricity Board, KSEB, are opposing the scheme. The center has launched the RDSS with an outlay of 303,758 rupees crore. The project has an estimated gross budgetary support of 97,631 crore rupees from the Union government for the duration of 5 years, from FY 2021-22 to FY 2025-26. The smart meters are meant to facilitate the reduction of distribution losses and enable automatic measuring of energy consumption. The installation of the prepaid meters is to be done through the TOTEX, total expenditure, including capital expenditure and operational expenditure, model, with public-private participation.
There are plenty of plant-based milk varieties available, but not all of them may be nutritionally enough as much as cow's milk, a new study suggested. According to the study, which is yet to be published but has been presented in United States Boston at Nutrition 2023, the annual meeting of the American Society for Nutrition, not all plant-based milk options are fortified to meet the levels of various nutritional ingredients contained in dairy such as protein, vitamin D and calcium. By analyzing labels and ingredients for 233 plant-based milk products from 23 different manufacturers, the study found only 28 of the beverages had as much or more of such nutrients as cow's milk. About half were fortified with vitamin D, 2/3 were fortified with calcium, and nearly 20% had protein levels similar to cow's milk, said lead study author and registered dietitian Abigail Johnson. Cow's milk is a good source of complete protein with 3 to 4% protein by weight. Plant-based milk varies, with almond milk having 1 to 2% protein, while soy milk is similar to cow's milk at 3 to 4%. Samsung Electronics flagged on Thursday a gradual global chip demand recovery after an ongoing glut led to continued losses in the technology giant's key business in the June quarter, despite a production cut. Looking to the second half of the year, the memory chip market is expected to gradually move toward stability considering increasing production cuts in the industry, the world's biggest memory chip and smartphone maker said in a statement. Chip clients are expected to move from using up inventory to buying semiconductors again, the South Korean company added, a day after rival SK Hynix also pointed to a nascent market recovery amid robust artificial intelligence demand. Chip losses shrank slightly from the first quarter's 4.58 trillion won due to strong memory chip demand from AI, which led to higher than expected shipments of DRAM chips that hold information from applications while the system is in use. Samsung's chip contract manufacturing business fared worse, experiencing a significant profit decline in the June quarter due to uncertainties in short-term demand, it said. Taiwan's TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker, lowered its annual sales guidance this month and warned of cost challenges as it battles weak global demand.
Amazon.com's cloud division has drawn thousands of customers to try out its service vying with Microsoft and Google in a key area of artificial intelligence, an executive told Reuters. The company also announced new AI tools on Wednesday, including a program for building more conversational customer service agents, technology access from the startup Cohere, and a healthcare system for generating clinical notes after a patient visit. Organizations including Sony, Ryanair and Sun Life have tried out Amazon Bedrock, a service the company announced in April that lets businesses create applications with a range of AI models, Vice President Swami Sivasubramanian said. Such generative technology can produce new text, images and other content on command. Amazon Bedrock is the company's answer to services announced by Google and Microsoft, cloud rivals that have developed or marketed AI garnering significant public attention. Microsoft has invested in OpenAI, the startup that created ChatGPT and the AI model known as GPT-4. Amazon's disclosure of thousands of Bedrock users, previously unreported, shows its efforts are attracting interest as well. The company wants to offer a broader range of AI models than peers to win business, including access to updated technology from startups Anthropic and Stability AI, announced Wednesday. Amazon's role as the largest cloud provider by revenue, already hosting myriad customers' data, distinguishes it, too, the company has said.
They invoke Scooby-Doo several times in They Clone Tyrone, the consistently entertaining and sometimes brilliant new film on Netflix. A genre mashup that combines elements of science fiction, satire, comedy and blaxploitation cinema, the movie strikes a wondrous tonal balance, but the undercurrent of goofiness that runs through it is straight out of those Hanna-Barbera cartoons about a talking dog and a gang of pesky kids. Written and directed by debutante Jewel Taylor, They Clone Tyrone has been somewhat silenced amid the "bawwal" of Barbenheimer, once again highlighting the huge chasm in the cultural relevance of theatrical movies and streaming content. But it might just be the second best film in an unusually packed week. Attack the Block's John Boyega stars as a drug peddler named Fontaine, who is gunned down in an early scene by a man he slighted moments earlier. That's what running someone over with a car in a particularly rough neighborhood gets you. Fontaine's colorful cohort, a smooth-talking pimp named Slick Charles, played by Jamie Foxx in what might just be one of the best performances of career, witnesses the shooting. But imagine his surprise when the next day, a seemingly healthy Fontaine comes banging on his door, apparently unaware of the fact that he'd been murdered mere hours ago.